evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this very exciting panel. My name is Morgan Hoffman, and I'm a reporter at ET Canada. Any day that I get to talk about girl power in media is a good day, but girl power in children's media is so important and such an important conversation to have. And some of today's current female leaders within the Canadian children's content industry join us as we create a conversation on how we can better empower female leadership both on and behind the screen, with, of course, the goal to ultimately pave a better and more inclusive path for women in animation and content production overall. Most importantly, we will begin this panel with a land acknowledgement. We'd like to take the time to acknowledge the land we gather on is a traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We encourage you to reflect on the history, treaties, and traditional keepers of the land we inhabit. I thought we would start things off by talking about the importance of female representation and gender equality. I know that all of you have a lot to say with this, and they say that if you can see it, you can be it. So I'd love to know what are some of your reasons and inspiration behind your advocacy for female leadership. And in your opinion, what are some of the ways that gender parity and gender equality behind the camera can lead to more inclusive cultures and better representation on screen? So Pam, I thought we'd start with you first.
For me, it came from, first of all, my mother. She was always a working mother. And so she taught me female leadership from a very young age. And I was lucky enough to have mentors along the way, female mentors that really helped me when I was young, determine which path I should take, and helped me have a voice within the companies that I worked in. And being part of the children's entertainment business has really been a great source of strength and inspiration for me, because in the early days, I've started quite a few years ago, men didn't want to become part of the children's media world. If you thought about the old entertainment world, there was like big Hollywood studios that did big blockbuster movies, and then children's, other than Disney, was quite a small industry. And so men in our industry tended to go towards the big studios, which left the children's industry open for us females to join and thrive in a culture that was very female oriented, led by females. And so we had a great group of women within the industry that I was in, help us all sort of elevate and pass it along. So I think that was really important to me. And then when you think about how important it is to see females on screen, like I said, I started quite a few years ago, where there weren't a lot of female leads, certainly no female leads of color. And so it was really important in the kids industry when women started to make those decisions that they put women as leads, and more importantly, representative of underrepresented communities.
I'll just jump in, Pam. I don't, if you don't mind.
That would be perfect.
I'll definitely speak a lot about what Telefilm is doing, but I just wanted to play a bit off of what you said. I actually started my career producing children's theater, and it was a very similar scope where I was fortunate enough to be working with incredibly strong women theater creators. And as I look past, I was just, looking at my career path, and I think almost every single one of my bosses has been a woman, and what a privilege that I was able to sort of come up in the industry with that ability to have leaders in front of me all the time. And I think when we talk about Telefilm, I think that's a big part of what Telefilm is trying to do. If we want to create an authentic lens, if we really want the next generation of children, our children, to be able to see content that is modeling what the future should be, then we have to make sure that female creators are behind the screen and on the screen. We have to ensure that non-binary, transgendered women have a chance to tell their stories, and that more and more communities are able to not just have access to, like, they have to see that they have a path and access to creating this content. I mean, I'm sure the other panelists are going to be able to talk about the incredible work that's being done, but we're very lucky in Canada to have the type of talent that we have here. And I just think, as Canadians, when you look at the all of the leaders of most of the big agencies, and I'll talk about agencies, a lot of them are women. And we're really looking forward to cultivating that next generation of women that are going to represent the Indigenous, Black, and leaders of color. So I'm really excited. Girl power is a big part of just my DNA. So I'll turn it over to another fellow panelist now.
Well, like Fran was saying, I've been really fortunate in my career to have had probably 95% of my bosses have been strong, creative, talented women. And so, I've been always surrounded by women my entire career. And as far as the CMF goes, the CMF is, committed to telling diverse and female stories. They recognized several years ago that there was a lack of gender balance in the industry. And it's not a question of talent and availability, it's a question of access. So the CMF has launched several initiatives over the year to correct the imbalance. And so far, we've gotten to the point where women today make up 51% of writers, 52% of producers, and 36% of directors for CMF-funded TV projects. And we know there's more work to do, but it's a slow but sure process. And we're doing what we can to bring female stories and stories from diverse producers to the screen.
So as everyone has said before, like Fran especially, I think that the two, if you can see it, you can be it. It really resonates with me. I think if we want to have a better future, then we can show it on screen, and we can really do that in children's media because we're creating a world for them. And I think it's really important to show all sorts of different kinds of girls. Like if we're talking specifically about girl representation, like for a long time when I was growing up, it was one kind of girl. It was the girl that boys had a crush on, and maybe a bitchy sister. Sorry, I don't know if we can say bitchy, but and now that we are in a different timeline, a different time, there's more girls. There's girls who like science. There's girls who like boys or don't like boys. There's the whole landscape is changing, that you don't have to be just one kind of girl. You can be any kind of girl. And I think there's still work to be done. But really, I know it's really trite and people always say it, especially writers, but the whole point of media for me is making people feel less alone. And if we can do that, then we've done our job. We've shown them that they are part of the world, that their stories are important. And I think that's really important on screen. And I think it's equally important behind the camera. I think, we have done a few things to try and rectify that at Sinking Ship. I think, there's still a huge amount of work to be done in terms of making sure that our crews and our writing staffs and our directors represent the actual society that we live in. But obviously it's really important, both from a female representation and BIPOC representation point of view. So I'm excited that these panels are happening and that we're all talking about it, because I know that just 5-10 years ago, it wasn't as much on the landscape. So I think it's very much point of everyone's thinking about it. So I think the change is happening. I think it could still happen faster.
Yes, I agree. Shaleen, would you like to go next?
Yeah, for sure. And like Christin said, there's so much there that, having role models who are, VPs or plus level, who are not only female but diverse is so important. And it's something that, there aren't a lot of, VP level people from BIPOC communities or, people who are above that. And I found it's interesting to hear everybody saying that they had female bosses. I did have female bosses, but when you looked higher up in the company, above, the female boss, there was usually males, white males, who were in charge. So finding a way to kind of give diverse females and females more opportunities to grow in careers, it hasn't really happened as much in my experience. And the other thing that I've kind of noticed is, when I was in film school, I made sure that I was in the tech areas. I majored in the areas where I would learn the most, like editing and camera. And I was one of the few people as a camera assist, you know, I was always kind of like, I knew how to use the camera. And I did that because I didn't want anyone to think that I didn't have that knowledge base, and I always wanted to be on top of my shit, because as a woman and you're trying to gain traction, and especially as a racialized woman, you get those opportunities and you need to shine. And if you don't shine, those doors close for you. And that's what I 100% found through my career, is finding those areas that, like, if somebody asks me something and they try to stump me with a tech question, I'd be like, please, I've edited. I know what that is,
Yeah.
you know, and it's something that is an additional load for females, and having people, mentors and role models in higher positions or in technical positions, or as Christin says, having shows about girls who are doing these things that we haven't traditionally seen, right? I was always considered like kind of a weird girl because I liked comic books and I liked things that aren't girly. It's like, but what does that mean? It means nothing, you know, like
Yeah.
it is who you are. You're, you know, you're the one who, you know, shows your identity to the world, no one else. So, you know, having people represent all kinds of women is so essential, and finding ways to give people opportunities to grow within careers, perhaps from mentorship, and we'll talk about that more in a bit, I think, would be great.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that, you know, all of us here have probably had to learn more to stay ahead, just to make sure that we were able to ascend. Georgina, last but not least.
So yeah, it was just, we actually have to work harder as women, and I think we have to constantly prove that we do know what our jobs are, and it just made me work harder and have the determination to move my way up. And I was always, there was very little women in leadership positions other than me, so I just made sure that my voice was heard. And I think women have it a bit tougher. I don't know if I think it's women in general, where, you know, we can tend to get more emotional, you know, just how we deal with things, or we can get angry. And I think it seems to be a little bit threatening. So I always had to be like, Georgina, you can't say this emotionally, or they're not going to take you as seriously as the man that's saying it. So I really learned a lot actually working with men and women.
Yeah.
And, I think it's something that, yeah, you just have to learn how to become a leader as a woman.
Yeah, I agree. And having those female mentors really helps, because females, as women, we do manage and lead differently because we are different than men. And I think that we bring a lot of compassion and emotion. And so we just need to know when to be able to, you know, try and bring that emotion down a little bit. But I would never want to lose that. I think that, frankly, we manage better and lead better because of that. So Georgina, I'm going to come back to you since you had to go last time. And so in addition to the question you answered, I'm going to ask how you've been addressing women of color on the screen or behind the screen, because we know that's getting a lot of publicity, well-deserved, and change needs to happen. And so how have you been doing that, either recently or since the beginning of your career?
Well, so I started my own company with my sister, Renata, and we specifically tried to surround ourselves with a lot of women, and we went out of our way to get, you know, a female DOP and sound, and every position that you could think of was women, and composers. And then I think we had a really amazing show. And then I think what happened is we realized, well, in our quest to get women, we should have also worked harder on diversity. So it was definitely something that we have focused on. And I think as I am a woman of color, and so I think I tend to try to hire as many women of color as you can in the positions. And it's something I think in the push to gender parity, we also need to look at making sure that we hire diversity in terms of, you know, race and in terms of abilities, as well as making sure there's non-binary people and that as well. So I think there is a push to get females in the room, and I think we have done a good job. I think we need to work harder on getting women of color.
I agree completely. Shaleen, what would you like to add to that?
It's a great answer, Georgina. I've been tracking what you've been doing, and it's amazing. And it's so great to see some of the shows that you're getting made that are really representing all people. Obviously, as being one of the few racialized women who is in a position, a VP plus position, it's hard because there aren't a lot of us. And as I kind of said in the last one, you do have to kind of bring it every time. And I find that there is some interesting stuff around unconscious bias, and that people do. I work extra hard to make sure people know that I'm just like them and I'm not like somebody who's foreign and they don't relate to. And it's something that I'm very aware of. And for a very long time, people were not aware of it and not open to listening to these kind of perspectives and these realities that we live. And that has changed with the murder of George Floyd. The rising consciousness of the world has opened kind of new doors for me to be able to speak up about these things. In fact, people are asking questions. But not only that, now when we are representing and we're doing it mindfully, we're always doing it mindfully. I always was. But previously, people would gaslight you and say, well, no, you're just being sensitive. You're just super sensitive on that subject matter. You don't know. It's okay that the only Asian character, only line in the entire thing is speaking a foreign language. That's fine, but it's not. So, really honing in on that and making sure that we are opening up to conversations and being open to conversations and checking our own biases, because we all have them. I catch myself doing weird things all the time, and you got to stop it. Creating opportunities for real representation of girls and women in kids content that comes from a really authentic place, I think is really important. And we're doing more and more of that. Our development slate is on the Toronto side is all diverse in some way, shape, or form. And we're trying to make sure that we're just continuing to build that and keep going, keep doing stuff that there's a need for, and also we haven't seen before. So it's fresh and cool, and people will love it, like Never Have I Ever and many other shows. And I'll stop talking now.
That is a fantastic show. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. Christin, you're up next.
And I turned off my camera because that's how that goes. Anyway, yeah, I mean, I echo Georgina and Shaleen's comments about how it's important. Obviously, I can't speak to the experiences that they've had as women of color. I think for myself and for Sinking Ship, it's a question of making sure that because it's a kid-led creative company, so we want to make sure that the stories that we tell are representative of the kids who are watching the shows, which means definitely diverse casts have been really important to us. And we started there about 10 years ago with Dino Dan. We made sure that we had representation on screen. We were slower on representation off screen, both for men and women of color. We were slower with women. We had more male directors. We did a show called Androids, which was about girl empowerment. Every single director was male. And those are decisions that I had a role in making. So it's been slower, but we have done a few programs where we did a female directors program to make sure that we got to a 50-50 directing program, which included many women of color. We've done a diverse writers boot camp. In our hiring practices, we make sure that we have where we're trying to make sure, and we hit it on sometimes more on one show than another, making sure that our crews are representative of society, and that we have, we try to hit numbers to make sure that it's, because many crews and many in the past have been overwhelmingly white, and it's a thing that hasn't been addressed, and it is a thing that is now being addressed. And, I think a really important thing is a lot of people haven't received the experience or the mentorship in the past, and that providing that and making sure that that people are put in positions and supported, I think is a really important thing, because sometimes people get let's say a director slot and they've done a short film before, and suddenly they're doing a huge show for a huge streamer, and it's making sure that it's not a token hire, that it's not just something that we're doing for an optics reason or something like that, but making sure that that person is supported, and they know that, you know, that we are going to make sure that it's the best episode that it could possibly be. So it's, I think, you know, it's making sure that people are given opportunities, and then once they're given opportunities, supporting them in those positions. It's not, it really, it's been a learning process, but it's one that we're committed to. So, and we're learning as we go. So we will, you know, take it one day at a time, but make sure that our hiring practices are reflective of the world that we live in.
I love hearing that. Shelley, how about you?
Oh no.
So over at CMF, we've been really creating programs to encourage female representation and diversity. For the last few years, we've had targets that the broadcasters actually have to hit on programs that include female producers, writers, and directors. All of our selective funds also have, you know, points allocated towards that the jury can give towards teams that are key personnel is 40% or more female. And then just this year, we started a pilot program for racialized communities. It includes pre-development, development, and production funding. And it's for producers that has a company owned 51% or more by a diverse producer. And this is all to, you know, because it's really, like I said before, it's about access. And so these are things to encourage broadcasters to open their doors to new talent, female producers, directors, writers, and people of color, Black and Indigenous. And so, you know, these new programs are a way to get in the door and build that relationship with the broadcasters.
Amazing. Francesca, how about you?
Sure. I'll give one stat, and then everything you were saying, it made me want to talk a bit more about some of the other things Telefilm has been doing to actually give space. So after sort of 5 years of concentrated effort, you know, Telefilm really is proud to say we reached 50% parity in all three key roles of director, screenwriter, and producer in the number of films that we finance. What we still are not seeing is, as Shaleen is saying, enough women creators of color, Black, Indigenous, or people of color within those positions. So that's the next. And so we've implemented a lot of kind of data capturing so that we can better identify when these creators are coming in to make sure that the portfolio is balanced. But, you know, one of the things I think I'd like to contribute is the shift that we're trying to do internally at Telefilm, which is one, actually creating space, succession planning for our staff. We have a number of incredible staff that are representative of Canada. So how do we make sure that they have enough space and comfort levels to share their lived experience, but also their opinions on how we should be changing, how we should be engaging with clients? We've built in sensitivity reads and selective processes. So it's not just Telefilm employees alone. We're going out. If somebody is submitting a script that is representative of a community and they're referring to another community, we're double checking that there is nothing untoward or that could create sensitivities from that other community. We've done quite a lot around, I'll call it career development, focused on how do we take, not emerging, yes, but there are incredible mid-career women creators out there that have been waiting a very long time to have their chance. And so we're really targeting that group of women to say, you probably are, you know, much more experienced than many other people coming in. So how do we just open the doors a bit differently for you, so you don't have to be, the burden has been on their shoulders for so long. So how do we just welcome them in a different way? And I'll promote 2 films and then I'm going to be quiet. But I think, you know, right now there's a film called Night Raiders that's live in cinema. It's by a creator named Danis Goulet. And 2 things. One, she's an incredible Indigenous storyteller. It took her, I think, 7 or 8 years to get this made. But it's also a beautiful story about a woman and a daughter. And so, You know, if I can just, I'm going to keep promoting throughout the show because that's what I do. But I just want to throw that out there because we need you to go see this content so that the bean counters will say, oh yes, there is an audience for that. And I think, Sinking Ship, you might say Christin, you might say the same. I'll stop now because I know there's so many other questions.
No, but that's fantastic. I think it's so important to promote, of course, filmmakers, but also stores that are super important and exactly what we're talking about right now. Pam, how would you say that Nelvana is addressing women of color on the screen and behind the screen?
I would say that much like Christin, we were able to do it on screen before we were able to really achieve any major change behind the screen. Mm-hmm. So, but 4 years ago, we worked with Sesame on a show called Esme and Roy, and the lead character was a little Black girl. And we did get some pushback from some people externally, not internally, thank goodness, that a show with a lead character who was Black in the international markets would not be able to be sold. That we'd be able to sell it in North America, in the UK, Australia, but apart from that, the rest of the world would probably not be interested. And we went ahead and made it anyway, because we were lucky enough to work with people like Sesame Workshop, so we were going to do it. And what we found out that was not the case at all, that if the show is good, it will sell and the viewers will watch, and kids are fairly agnostic about that. Behind the camera, I will say that the BLM, Black Lives Matter movement, is what spurred us to actually take a look at female and racialized parity within our studio. And we did find that, for example, directors are all men, producers are all women. Mm-hmm. We did find that we had a lot of Southeast Asians and Asians in our studio, but very few Blacks, none in management. And so we put together a task force where we have not only are looking to change hiring practices and give people the chance, people of underrepresented communities, the chance to come in and be mentored, because I think you're right, Christin, that is very important. You can't just throw people into a job they don't know. But also make sure that when we have characters on screen and they are of underrepresented communities, that the stories are being written by that same community. The voice talent is the talent from that community. It used to be that even if the character was Black, the voice would be from a white actor. And so we've really put a lot of parameters and commitments in our studio so that the right story is being told by the right person and being voiced by the right character. So we're a lot more sensitive about that as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for those answers. You guys all know this, but the path to success isn't always straightforward. What do you think have been some of the biggest challenges for production companies to attract and retain female talent within the industry, specifically among Indigenous, Black, and women of color? Pam, let's start with you.
Sure. I think that like I said at the beginning, I think the kids business has always been able to attract women and give them the ability to grow within that community, which I think is fantastic. And what I've learned from my female mentors is that women bear the brunt of home life, marriage or not, kids or not, caring for parents. All of that seems to fall inordinately on the shoulders of females, so that when you do have a female heavy staff, you have to understand that sometimes that woman is going to give you 120%, and sometimes that woman is going to give you 60%, depending on what is going on in her life. Kids are sick, need to be picked up from school. But if you can understand that, you will be able to retain a female staff, and more than often, they will give you that 120% because they are in a community at work that understands what they are facing. So I think it's really important for us to understand that equality doesn't mean equal. Just because you have the same amount of women as men, you have to be able to understand their circumstances and be able to help them achieve and mentor them in a way that understands what the burdens they also have to bear. I don't think that's any different when you're thinking about Indigenous women or Black women or women of color. There are other situations that they've grown up with that you have to be able to understand what they're coming from and where they want to go, and really help mentor them and get them the leadership that they need to be able to succeed. They all want to come and succeed and do a great job. Nobody wants to come to work and do a bad job, especially women. And we're usually doing a job after work as well. So you just need to make sure that you're giving them the space and the voice they need.
I love that. Francesca, how about you?
Yeah, I like to build on that because I think that, when I worked in production, the hardest thing was that when you had kids, like, where would you take your kids? How would you do daycare? Daycares are normally like 8 till 4 or 8 till 6. Maybe you'd have to do a nanny. What if you can't afford a nanny? Like, it's incredibly complex childcare, elder care. And I think it's something that Telefilm, when we're looking at the budgets and we're talking about how do we look at welcoming more women creators in, it's contemplating, what does that look like in a budget? Oh my God, all the producers, but could you, put some of that in as a production company so that there is a safe environment for men? There are male parents as well that have wonderful, our primary caregivers. But I think through the work that Telefilm has been privileged to do with so many of our producers, we also have to recognize the level of barriers that exist for a lot of the creators of color. And I think it's a big learning for us, because it's not my lived experience. So to take stop and actually talk to people from those communities. We've set up a lot of different working groups where we start to have those conversations. And I think this may sound kind of crazy, but we used to just count on everybody, contributing for free. And I think, Shaleen, when I think about Black Lives Matter, and one of the changes was everyone should be compensated for their expertise. It is not just because you're in this business that I'm going to ask, you to do this extra work and take from your expertise. So it was a big shift for us, and a very important shift, that not everybody could live off a credit card. Not everybody can do a credit card film. So we changed the way that we actually finance, our first time feature films. We went from giving $125,000 to $250,000 so that people can actually live a life. We know that in production, everybody donates back their salary. We're trying to stop doing that so that everybody can live a life, because this is what we want to do. We want to not just sustain, we want the industry to thrive. But I do think we have to take a step back and really look at, as Pam said, what are other people's realities, and start to be a little more flexible. Mm-hmm. What an incredible place we get to be in. We get to make amazing content. So why don't we actually just build a safer, more exciting space for the creativity to thrive? That would be my end goal.
Now, I think that's so important for everyone. I mean, I think everyone can agree with that. Shelley, how about you?
Well, like Telefilm, CMF is doing lots of working groups throughout the last few years to address some of these issues. And, as a major funder, we know it's our duty and responsibility to use our leverage to influence the outcomes that we want to see. And this includes working to foster diversity and equity in the industry. So, the gender parity measures and the diversity initiatives that we launched over the last few years, they're a start. But, we know there's, much further to go, and systematic changes won't happen unless broadcasters, distributors, and key producers and the funders make changes that will stick.
Christin?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not an expert on the challenges that women of color face, because I am not one. But I think from what I've learned is that the problem is actually access. When we hire, a lot of the time we're like, oh, who do you know? You'll hire your friend, or this person I worked on the last show, or this person I worked on. 2 movies ago or whatever. And like, it is very much a who you know industry. And I think a really big obstacle, and I'm sure Georgina and Shaleen will talk about this too, or maybe they won't, I don't know, is that like, you know, your network is a lot of times how you get your job. And if people aren't in those people's networks, decision makers networks, or hiring people's networks, then they're not going to get the job. So I don't know if it's so much about attracting and retaining as it is about looking. And it is about like hiring people outside of your network. It's about, you know, when we did, and this is like a few years back. So, and certainly it's not something, anyways, when we did a diverse writers program, actually, when we were looking to hire some diverse writers, this was about 5 years ago, I realized that I knew like 2 or 3. And then, so I had to look deeper. And then when I look deeper, there's a whole bunch of people who just don't have agents, who just don't know the other writers that I know, and I think that has definitely changed in the last 5 years and in a very meaningful, positive way. But you do, if you want to diversify your workplace, if you want to make sure that change is happening around you, you really, us as production companies, as producers, as people who hire, we need to look.
Absolutely. Shaleen?
Yes, of course I will talk about diversity. Christin, of course I will. But I also wanted to mention on the last one too, we do also have some initiatives where we are launching more and more initiatives to get more female directors, but you know, also mandating it that for every one of our shows we are hiring females. And I didn't mention that because I was just obsessively going on about BIPOC issues. But this question, I definitely agree with what Christin was saying, and I was actually going to say some of that you know, we actively seek out people to meet consistently and constantly because we don't know people. And here's the thing, I mean, for women, and especially, you know, women of color, you don't ask for things. It's like a thing that's ingrained in a lot, like South Asian people. I went to, like, if I was going to visit family members, my parents were like, do not ask for a drink. If they offer you a drink, say no. Absolutely not. You don't take anything from anyone. So you don't ask these questions. You don't seek it out. You don't do the coffee chats because you're this ingrained feeling that I'm not good enough. I think probably everyone in this group knows that when a man looks at a job with all the categories and criteria, they're like, yeah, that's for me, even if they're totally underqualified. And a woman who's more qualified will look at the same job description and not apply because one thing doesn't fit her resume. And that's the issue. So it's amazing to me that a lot of people reach out for coffee chats, but it is mainly white males. And I was a part of the BIPOC Kids TV boot camp. I did a little talk, and I told every single person on the call, call me. I want to hire you. Call me and email me. 3 people maybe emailed me after that call, because it's this thing that you feel like, well, I'm not ready. They're not going to like me. They're not going to whatever. And you're feeling like, you know, they won't get the gig, where it's like, we want to meet these people. So what I do is I sit there on the internet at night, drinking some wine, checking out Instagram, and I look for writers and I look for designers and I look for people to hire. And then I email them and try to get them to bring something to us. And unfortunately, maybe 20% will actually send us a pitch or do something with us, and the rest will just kind of let it go.
Yeah.
It's just kind of an ingrained cultural thing, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. But I love that you're out there on social media going after people. That's so amazing. I love that. Georgina, how about yourself?
Well, so many people said great things, but I have to say, quick, what Christin was saying is correct. I think you just have to hire outside of who you know. And I think, again, it always comes down to the same issue, is that we have to hire creators and key creatives that are BIPOC and female. And I think it's a great push for diversity in this industry and gender parity. I think it's fantastic. And there's a lot of training programs and there's a lot of opportunities that weren't there, you know, when I first started my career. But then I think follow up, you know, at Lopii Productions, we met so many great people. There are people out there. There's so many great creators and technicians and females and BIPOC who are just, you know, they've done the training programs, they've done, you know, the workshops, and then they're not hired. You know, they come on, they shadow as a director, and then they get maybe one show, and then it goes back to the, you know, the same males that get the job. So I think the question is, follow those people, give them the opportunity that they need, and you will get great people that will be working for you. I've been in rooms, where you're in writing rooms where you're talking about diversity and how can we put diverse characters, what can we add to make this, but it's all white or white males or women. And I think, so again, just try to push harder and don't have excuses. I think give people opportunities and chances. And I think it comes down to also like having broadcasters that are and the production executives that are people of color. Like, this is what we need more, because then they will naturally hire more and pick up shows of people of color as well. And I just want to say on one note before we go to the next with Shaleen, what you were saying about women. I think we tend to, it's ingrained in us, and also as people of color, to just kind of accept things and nod, and you don't want to come across as intimidating, or so you tend to just kind of agree. And as somebody who did a lot of hiring, I found that constantly the women that you hired were always take the position as is, and the males always ask for raise, ask for more money, ask for position, and then as a default, you kind of ended up paying the males more. Just my advice to females is you can also be like, oh, do you have any more money in the position? Maybe they don't, but don't be afraid, to ask.
That is such important advice. That is something that I know even the women in my life, that's something we talk about on a regular basis. And for the people in my life, that's a challenge. When to know to do it, is it okay to do it? It's something we talk about. All of you have talked about the challenges, that women of color face in the industry. But in celebration of Canadian content and recognizing, all that Canada has accomplished to become a trailblazer in the children industry, specifically as it relates to gender parity and equality, I'd be interested in hearing from you what you're most proud of that you've been able to accomplish within that realm. Pam, let's start with you.
Well, today, I first female president of Nelvana that has a 75% female senior leadership team. So I would say that is something that I'm really proud to achieve personally, as well as being able to pull together a very female heavy senior leadership team. I'm also really proud of the more personal one-on-one interactions I've had with females that I am now their mentors, or I am helping them navigate the younger generation that is going to come up and become the senior leadership team, and also the female members of my senior leadership team and how they can achieve more. And I wholeheartedly agree with what Georgina was saying, helping women find a voice, helping women learn how to ask for that job and ask for the money that they are due is important. And I've often had women ask me for money and I haven't been able to give it to them because that's just not, been in my ability at that time. But I always thank them for asking. And I always tell them never to be shy to do that. And while I can't perhaps give them the money that they want, I recognize their talent and I put them on a fast track to get to where they want to go in their career. And I think that is worth sometimes more than the extra couple of percentage points when they know that there is a woman helping them on their career track. And then just to sort of circle back on what sometimes women face, I've had a few women that have worked for me that have had, for example, infertility problems or want to start a family. And I've actually put that in their annual objectives. So they have objectives of driving revenue or making productions on budget on time. And then their third one would be, getting pregnant. And we don't always put that on the official career plan that the company asks, but I tell them that is our objective together. And no matter the time they need to go and get the test done or have the baby or be ensured that their job is safe when they come back from their mat leave, this is part of our objective that we're going to manage together. And when you tell that to a woman who is struggling to have a family or wants to, not struggling, but just is nervous to have one at that point in her career, I think it does give them the ability to take a breath and focus on their career and their family life.
Pam, I have to tell you how incredible that is. That we need more of that. That's so fantastic hearing that from you. Francesca, how about you? What are you most proud of in your advocacy in achieving gender parity and gender equality within this industry?
I'm actually going to go the personal route. I think, you know, I have an 18-year-old daughter, and it's incredible to look at the world through her eyes because she doesn't see the barriers that I saw. She's not afraid to challenge the system or question things. Like, I just remember being her age and being fearful to, you know, ask for things, very much like what we've talked about. And I've just watched this kid lean into the world. And I you know, I just have such high hopes that the world that so many of the people on this panel have created, and, you know, that you have people like, you know, Shaleen and Georgina out there, you know, creating this content that she's been watching. So I'm very proud of that. I'm sure Telefilm's doing a lot, but I just wanted to throw it out there that I'm just so excited to have a kick-ass kid that's just like 4 times better than I ever was. And I kind of want to channel her all the time. And I also would say, just for anybody in the audience, you know, if you ever get into a place where, like, I'm a great advocate for other people. I suck at advocating for myself, but you put me next to somebody else and I will advocate. I'm going to swear, but I'm going to advocate the shit for somebody else. So I think, you know, this is where it's not just laddering down, but it's laddering across. Because I have colleagues too that, you know, I'll be their cheerleader behind and say, how do you want me to support you, not help you? What do you need to succeed and how can I support you? And I'm trying to remove the word help, because it starts to diminish us as women. So how can I support you to succeid? But anyway, now I've just sworn. Sorry, people. Whatever.
No, I think
somebody else swear. Make it not just me.
No, I love using the word support. I think there's quite the distinction there between help and support. So I love hearing that. Shelley, how about you?
Well, I can certainly vouch for what Fran just said, because I'm in this role because of Fran. He took a chance on me 10 years ago and gave me this job. So thank you, Fran. And the CMF is doing, you know, a lot to try and, like I said, to try and increase gender parity and diversity. And I think it's really been working over the last few years. You know, I'm proud of their work in that respect. I'll keep it short.
That's great. Christin?
One of the things I'm most proud of, and I'll try to keep it short, is that the show we did a few years ago, Dino Dana, was a show about girl empowerment and girls who love science and girls who love dinosaurs, and girls can love dinosaurs too. But one of the behind the scenes thing that I really am proud of, and I think the whole company is that at the time, and it's changed, getting a job as a director for women was very hard. So, and, you know, there was, you know, there are no female directors, or like they haven't done anything other than the short they made for $5 or whatever. So we did a mentorship program. And like, that was great for us. It expanded our roster. But what it did, like, it had an impact on the industry greater than that. And I don't know how big this is, and this is anecdotal, but that other people, like producers of bigger hour-long shows, or, you know, shows that were like half-hour comedies in primetime, would be like, you know, when they're looking to diversify their ranks and hire female or diverse directors, they would have a credit, and they would be like, oh, they did a Dino Dana, or they did an Odd Squad. And it opened the door, not just at our company, but at other companies. And like, people would be like, oh, I guess they did it, or now they're on a list. And it was like, it was a small thing, but I think it had an impact greater than the thing that we initially had intended to have. Mm-hmm. And that really made us all very proud.
Oh, I love that. Shaleen?
It made us all proud. And honestly, like, I tracked Sinking Ship doing that the whole time, and I was like, I need to do more of that. Now we are going to do some initiatives in our company as well, and it's all following the leadership of these amazing people who you know, trailblazed before us. 2 things for me. One, the thing that I'm really proud of is mentoring women, especially women of color, and just like taking the time, reading their scripts, even though, you know, not technically supposed to do that as a development exec, and giving them notes and feedback, and just taking time out of my day to focus on them and try to grow their careers, and actually like try to get their shows made, even if it's not with me. And then the other thing is learning, actually self-focused, but learning to advocate for myself. It was something that I had to train myself to do and unlearn a lot of the shit that I've learned before. I've already sworn a bunch of times on this call, by the way. And like doing that has opened so many doors for me. But not only that, I always ask. I'm asking all the time. Give me this. What about this? Can I get this? Because why not? The worst case scenario, you get a no, but you keep trying, and that's the only way you can keep growing.
Yeah, absolutely. Georgina, what are you most proud of?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things, but I guess I'm just really proud of the fact that I learned so much through other people that we founded our own production company, and we were able to take a lot of great things that we learned and apply it. And also, for once, instead of being the person that was like, why don't you just hire the people, was actually hiring. And we had our last show that we just produced, and the writer's room was full of diverse faces. And it was so wonderful to give so many people opportunities that had been waiting forever to get a script, and to give them multiple scripts, and to get new directors that hadn't directed before and give them credit. So kind of what Christin was saying, like to see those people and give them the experience that they needed so that they could move on to other companies was a wonderful opportunity. So I was very proud.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being so honest in this panel, and for sharing your stories. It's very inspiring. I do have one last question. It's trickier because you can only give me one word, but in one word, what would you say to a young girl dreaming of getting into this industry when she grows up? Pam, let's start with you.
It's going to be 2 words because, you don't like to follow the rules. Be confident.
Oh, that's important. Be confident. I love that. Francesca?
Damn it. That was mine. What?
You can add more words. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll just make one phrase. I would say just ask.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I have a bunch of words. Because this happened to me when I wanted to be in the industry 20-something years ago. Don't let anyone tell you you can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important.
Mine is on the same line, but it's like, you deserve to be here.
Oh, I love these so much. This is so good. Shaleen?
Muted. I'm sure it's great, though.
Mine is endure, I guess, or persevere, because the only way you get there is by you keep going, and then you'll get there eventually.
That's why you're a development executive. Look at that.
And Georgina?
It's really hard to do one word, but I would say it's 2 words, but like take risks.
That's good. I have to tell you, everything you all just said is inspiring to adults as well. Just women in this industry, kids, of course, but also it's just women need to hear that as well. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks for everyone for joining us. Honestly, you guys gave such fantastic insight into paving the path for girl power in Canadian content, just celebrating girl power in general. For more information on Nelvana's 50th anniversary events, feel free to stop by www.nelvana.com, as well. You can join the conversation online, and make sure to tag Nelvana as well. Ladies, thank you so much again for your honesty and for sharing your stories. Really, really appreciate it, and hope everyone has a great night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. It was so nice to chat. Bye, everyone.
Bye.